Happening now, we're looking at a live picture in Santa Monica, California, as the nation remembers President Ronald Reagan and looks to an extraordinary week of tributes ahead. Stand by for hard news on Wolf Blitzer Reports. A day of remembrance at home and abroad. America mourns its 40th president.
He was a man of incredible vision, and he never varied or strayed from the vision that he had of a world of peace, a world where freedom was breaking out.
There's no doubt that he won the Cold War without firing a shot.
And 60 years after the troops hit the beach, remembering the turning point of World War II, aging veterans return to Normandy for one more look.
Time and providence have brought them back to see once more the beaches and the cliffs, the crosses and the stars of David.
Today we honor all those who gave their lives in this campaign, and all of you who fought in this great struggle.
Hello, I'm Wolf Blitzer at the U.S. Military Cemetery in Colleville-sur-Mer in France. Welcome to our special edition of Wolf Blitzer Reports. We also want to welcome our international viewers. We'll be looking at today's ceremonies here in Normandy, marking the 60th anniversary of the D-Day invasion on June 6, 1944. But we'll start with reaction coming in from around the world to the death of Ronald Wilson Reagan, the 40th President of the United States. The body of President Reagan will be flown to Washington for a state funeral at the National Cathedral on Friday. International leaders, former colleagues, and ordinary American citizens are remembering the life and the long public career of the former president, governor, and actor who died on Saturday at the age of 93. We'll have live reports this hour from our senior White House correspondent, John King. He's in Paris. And our Moscow bureau chief, Jill Doherty. She's in Moscow. But we begin our coverage with David Mattingly. He's at the Reagan Library in Simi Valley, California. David?
Wolf, tomorrow afternoon, for the first time, the public will be allowed to view the presidential casket here at the Presidential Library in Simi Valley, California. The casket, however, will remain closed. Instead, when people come up here to visit, they will be greeted by the library's statue of a robust and smiling Ronald Reagan, a towering bronze figure holding a cowboy hat in its left hand. It is a very complimentary image of our 40th president, an image people will no doubt take with them on what is expected to be an emotional day.
Mrs. Reagan and her family are deeply touched by the outpouring of sympathy from across the country and around the world. They have received thousands of messages via telephone, fax, and email, and through the special remembrances that have been placed here near the Reagan residence in Bel Air, at the Reagan Library in Simi Valley, at Eureka College in Eureka, Illinois, at the birthplace in Tampico, Illinois, and the President's Boyhood Home in Dixon, Illinois, just to name a few. As you can understand, the family is in deep mourning over the loss of a husband, a father, a grandfather, and their hero.
A hero to many thousands of Americans with the passing of this president. The events will begin and end here at the Reagan Presidential Library. Tomorrow will begin the public viewing here at the Presidential Library. That will go through Tuesday. On Wednesday, there will be a ceremony and public viewing at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda in Washington, D.C. That viewing will continue through through Thursday. On Friday, there will be funeral services at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. After that, the casket will be brought back here to the Presidential Library in Simi Valley, where the 40th president will be put to rest at a gravesite here at the Presidential Library overlooking the Pacific Ocean. It will be a private ceremony for friends and family only. We have a list of pallbearers for that small ceremony. It includes Michael Deaver, a longtime aide, Merv Griffin, a family friend, Dr. John Hutton, a family physician, Frederick Ryan, former chief of staff, post-White House years, and Charles Wick, a former Reagan political appointee and former Hollywood producer. So again, it all begins and ends here at the Presidential Library in Simi Valley. Wolf?
David Mattingly reporting from California for us. David, thank you very much. The news of President Reagan's death was, of course, quickly conveyed to President Bush on Saturday, who was in Paris for the 60th anniversary memorial services to D-Day. Reporting on the President's Day, our senior White House correspondent John King is joining us now live from the French capital. John?
And Wolf, the president here, of course, for that moving day of commemoration at Normandy. He is now on his way back to the United States for some sensitive international diplomacy and, of course, to lead the nation in mourning. In Normandy to salute the heroes who stormed the beaches 60 years ago and a role model who walked this hallowed ground 20 years before him.
He was a courageous man himself and a gallant leader in the cause of freedom. And today we honor the memory of Ronald Reagan.
Mr. Bush will hear taps again before the week is out, heading home as arrangements are made for President Reagan's state funeral on Friday. Flags at the White House and all federal buildings are at half-staff for 30 days on Mr. Bush's order, part of the tribute to a man with whom the current president has both a personal and political affinity.
They're Westerners. They are probably both of them would have rather been on the ranch than any place else. They were both governors, Western governors. They're both sort of hands-on people. They're both people with strong convictions who stick by them.
This president is the son of a president, but politically is much more an heir of Reagan.
What they share in common is the modern Republican Party that this President Bush inherited from Ronald Reagan, which is a Republican Party that's united by tax cuts and that's animated by strong American defense.
Not all of the comparisons are favorable.
When we used to do research about Ronald Reagan in the early 80s, women would say he's stubborn, he doesn't listen, and you can see some of the same response by some swing women voters about this President Bush.
Several of the world leaders at the D-Day commemoration are joining Mr. Bush for the annual G8 summit this week at Sea Island, Georgia, and many will then head to Washington for Friday's state funeral for Mr. Reagan at the National Cathedral. And some of the European leaders planning to attend that funeral are from nations President Reagan referred to as liberated countries lost in his vintage D-Day speech 20 years ago. That a reference to Soviet occupation. Now, of course, the Soviet Union is no more. Eastern Europe is democratic and free, and history gives Ronald Reagan a good piece of the credit. Wolf?
CNN's John King reporting from Paris. Thanks, John, very much. There are many people in official Washington who have both professional and personal memories of Ronald Reagan. One in particular who has remained in the government is the Secretary of State, Colin Powell. He served as Ronald Reagan's national security advisor. I spoke with Secretary Powell earlier today.
After he retired, I went to see him out at his home in Beverly Hills, and I had retired. But a young sergeant had been assigned as a courtesy to drive me to the house. And as we were pulling up to the house, the young sergeant said to me, "Would you please tell President Reagan how much we appreciate what he did for us?" And I said, okay. So I got to the door, rang the doorbell. President Reagan answered the door, welcomed me, "Come on in, say hello to Nancy." And I said, "This is somebody I want you to meet." I called the sergeant over. I said, "Sergeant, you tell him yourself." Sergeant was stunned. He couldn't say a word. He just did what sergeants do. He came to attention, saluted President Reagan. President Reagan returned the salute. We went in the house. Sergeant went back to the car. The door closed, and President Reagan said to me, "Colin, is it still okay for me to salute?" I said, Mr. Reagan, don't you ever stop saluting."
This was a president and a man who had the ability to touch people in very, very personal, human ways. And joining us now from Washington is a man who was also very close to President Reagan. He knew him quite well. He was the former Secretary of Education in President Reagan's cabinet, William Bennett. Mr. Bennett, thanks very much for joining us. Can you explain to our viewers around the world why someone who supported Franklin Roosevelt as a Democrat eventually became a Barry Goldwater Republican? I'm specifically speaking, of course, about Ronald Reagan.
Well, I was a Reagan Democrat. I was one of the people to whom Ronald Reagan was appealing. Well, of course, he was a Democrat. I was a Democrat when I entered his cabinet as Secretary of Education. And one of the reasons for Ronald Reagan's reach and his impact is that a lot of people were counting the conservative Republican Party out. Barry Goldwater had had a rough time, and people thought that the Republican Party was to be defined by Jerry Ford and Nelson Rockefeller and so on. But with Ronald Reagan, you had a conservatism, a buoyant conservatism, an optimistic conservatism that reinvigorated the Republican Party, but just as important, drew disaffected Democrats, such as myself, people who had been put off by the McGovernization, as we called it, of the Democratic Party.
So was that, but he became a conservative Republican long before McGovern was the Democratic presidential candidate. What specifically turned him from the Democrats toward the Republicans?
You'll have to ask the California friends that, but I think that his experience in the motion picture industry had an awful lot to do with it. But also that, that grassroots common sense, that Dixon, Illinois childhood that we used to talk about a lot. My best friend is from Dixon, Illinois, and we used to talk about the environment of Dixon a great deal. But this is a man who, when he took office, this is one of the great ironies of Ronald Reagan, always underrated. People called him a dunderhead. His critics said he made these terrible B movies. But when he took office at 69, oldest president to take office, he reinvigorated the country, rejuvenated the country. That was his most stellar, I think, early accomplishment.
When he convened his cabinet, and you were a member of his cabinet, and all of the members of the cabinet sat in that cabinet room in the White House, give us a little flavor. What was he like in chairing those kinds of meetings?
Well, there's a lot of dispute, Wolf. As you know, people say, did Ronald Reagan ever sleep or doze off during cabinet meetings? I was in the cabinet. I'm here to tell you, yes, he did occasionally, but always with good reason. Always when it was so boring and so tedious and so off point, there was an awful lot of charts and graphs and data. Ronald Reagan was focused like a laser on doing a couple of things. Destroying the evil empire, ending that attempt at Soviet hegemony of the world, and limiting the size of government. So often people would make presentations. They would be, the typical sort of conference presentation, and you would see Reagan, the president, dozing off. Then the person would begin to tell a real-life story about a human being who was suffering because of a health problem, or a kid who wasn't able to learn something, or someone trying to start a business. And Ronald Reagan would come to life because it was a story. Once upon a time, he loved the story, and he often gave his best speeches were stories of people he knew, things he read of. He'd call me up when I was Secretary of Education. He'd read a story in a paper about a child who was not getting the right kind of education, and he'd ask me to look into it. That was a very interesting approach.
William Bennett has a new morning radio program across the United States, appropriately titled Morning in America. William Bennett, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Wolf.
And to our viewers around the world, here's your chance to weigh in on this important story. Our web question of the day is this: how significant was the Reagan presidency? Was it very significant, somewhat, or not at all? You can vote right now. Go to CNN.com/Wolf. We'll have the results for you later in this broadcast. While you're there, though, I'd love to hear directly from you, our viewers. Send me your comments anytime. I'll try to read some of them on the air each day at the end of this program. That's also where you can read my daily online column, CNN.com/Wolf. Ronald Reagan's death added even more impact to what was already turning out to be an extremely emotional weekend here in Normandy, France. 60 years ago, Allied troops began the D-Day invasion, landing here in Normandy to begin an assault that ultimately won World War II. Ceremonies here honored the veterans who survived that bloody battle and their comrades who died. CNN senior correspondent Jim Bitterman reports.
D-Day anniversaries are always filled with tributes to fallen comrades, to old alliances. But the memories this D-Day took in far more. Prayers and flags at half-staff remembered the passing of former U.S. President Ronald Reagan, who just 20 years ago was at the center of the D-Day commemorations. With the German Chancellor invited to a D-Day anniversary for the first time, the German-French ceremony concentrated on memories of the recent past, not the years of war and conflict that eventually led to D-Day itself. But the recent past was carefully avoided at the French-American tributes. Relations are still fragile between their two countries, and so the two presidents to remember their gratitude and the sacrifice of their veterans.
It is a strange turn of history that called on young men from the prairie towns and city streets of America to cross an ocean and throw back the marching mechanized evils of fascism. And those young men did it. You did it.
The message of France is indeed a message of friendship and brotherhood, a message of thanks.
16 other heads of state and government and thousands of dignitaries that there can be no future without memory. But choosing exactly what to remember was key to getting through a complicated day where not all national memories are positive ones. And in the end, what all who gathered on the beaches of Normandy had in common was an uncommon admiration for the once young men and women, both living and dead, who laid their lives on the line for freedom in a war without moral ambiguity. Jim Bitterman, CNN, on the Normandy coast of France.
Even though Iraq was not discussed at any of the public ceremonies here in Normandy, it certainly was a hot topic of conversation behind the scenes. When we come back, our Christiane Amanpour talks with D-Day veterans about their special experiences and how they compare to the current conflict in Iraq. Also, keeping the spirit of D-Day alive, part of my interview with the film director Steven Spielberg. That's coming up. And later, as preparations continue for Ronald Reagan's funeral, a special look at the enormous effort that goes into planning such an important event. Stay with us.
At CDW, account managers help you choose the IT products right for you. So we read a lot of product manuals. Open. They're great. My husband likes spy novels, but give me a modular access router manual any day. Then Mama Bear routes the frame directly to the switch port. I love the way this one ends.
For account managers who know all about the IT products you need, you can always expect more from CDW.
He is his father's son. She, her mother's daughter. One is your high school buddy. Another, a friend of the family. The girl next door, the regular guy. They're all here. And everyone, 100 times over, will be called hero. To these heroes, our thanks.
Why do we work? Why do we get up every day and go to work? Because we make things, fix things, send our kids off to learn things. At the Principal Financial Group, we know you don't just work to retire, you work to live. That's why we give people the financial tools to help them keep more of the money they make and do more with the money they save. You work hard, we make work hard for you. The Principal Financial Group, we understand what you're working for.
More Americans watch CNN than any other news channel. Another reason why CNN is the most trusted name in news.
In Portland, this is where great plays are made. This is where great bread is made. And this is where great deals are made every day. Rose City Chevrolet wants you to help celebrate our grand opening with our spring sales event. All new 2004 Avios as low as $79.95. All new Malibu Maxes as low as $13,998. And all new 2004 4-door Cavaliers only $11,998. All at Rose City Chevrolet's grand opening spring sales event. Rose City Chevrolet, where smart buyers buy. 8150 North Lombard, just a minute east of the St. John's Bridge.
Forgive me, I have sinned. Go on. I've been watching a lot of cable TV lately.
So?
Well, I haven't exactly been paying for it. I know it's wrong, but I like the cooking shows too much.
Yeah, me too.
I know they're going to catch me and shut off my cable. What should I do?
Well, you can sign up right now and keep getting cable.
We're checking service levels in your area.
Okay.
And if you're not paying for cable, you'll be disconnected. So don't miss your favorite shows. Call now and we'll sign you up. No questions asked.
CNN, the most trusted name in news.
When the Allies assaulted the German positions here 60 years ago today, they carried the hopes of the free world along with them. In Iraq, however, another armed assault has had, at least for many people, a very different political effect. But political considerations aside, soldiers from the D-Day generation have nothing but respect for their counterparts today. Our Christiana Manpour has the story.
Today, our men, the boys from New York and London, from Seattle and Manchester, Toronto and Montreal, from Marseille, Warsaw and Prague, from Narvik, fight on the beaches of Europe.
It was the day that will forever live in glory, the day democracy started to fight back, and ordinary men summoned extraordinary courage and made terrible sacrifices. 10,000 casualties that one day alone. 60 years later, Normandy does not forget its liberators. 60 years later, it says another thank you, awarding hundreds of American, British, and other veterans special Normandy campaign medals. Men who stormed the beaches as youngsters, but who can no longer walk. These aging heroes know that this may be the last time they see the site of their greatest triumph.
Anyway, look after yourself. Don't forget now you're an antique now.
What does today mean to you?
Well, if I'd only see one person with a green beret. There's not one here. We left most of them. You see, as I told you, I had 5 left. There's 2 still in Scotland, but they had such a bad time they'll never come back.
86-year-old John Bastable was a British commando among the first to land. His comrade, Leslie Lapidus of the 7th Armoured Division, the famed British Desert Rats, arrived one day later after tough tours in Africa and Italy, exhausted but determined to defeat Hitler.
I, as a Jew, wouldn't be here for starters. And he had to be seen to, he had to be seen off. And thank God for America who came in, and the Russians, did a fantastic job. And thank God for Churchill.
Men who've been dubbed the greatest generation are self-deprecating. These men who defined heroism talk simply of duty.
It's not a glorious thing. I mean, a man that, you know, sacrifices himself for his comrades is a hero. And the heroes that I saw were already buried.
Unlike the Normandy invasion, which has gone down in history as the Atlantic Alliance's greatest achievement, the Iraq War is generally considered its greatest failure. A failure to forge common goals, common strategy, and even a post-war peace plan. This is not lost on yesterday's veterans, like 88-year-old American Stanley Schoenberger.
Only good thing is they got rid of Saddam Hussein, but not joining with the other allies, I think, was a very big mistake, and going to pay for it for a long time.
Britain's James Carter.
But I think it's a disaster. I don't think we should have been involved. There's no reason to have been involved. They have never found those weapons, and I think it's terrible for those that lost their life. I really do.
Leslie Lapidus, whose Desert Rats also fought in Iraq, won't be drawn on politics, but he pays tribute to the Iraq invasion forces.
I think the Army did a most magnificent job, and the equipment they've got today, you know, makes what we have look like total rubbish.
But their war was not, and in an effort to transcend the discord over today's struggle, the French hosts called this ceremony a celebration of peace, tolerance, and friendship between nations.
And Christiana Manpour is joining us now live here in Normandy. Christiane, you watched all of these ceremonies today. Did anything change substantively based on what you can tell in terms of the U.S. relationship with France, Germany, the other allies?
Well, I think certainly things changed, if not substantively, then definitely symbolically and in terms of the feeling. You could tell by the incredible speeches. They were really eloquent speeches, President Bush's, but also President Chirac's. He gave 2 big speeches, one here at the American War Cemetery and one the international tribute to all the veterans, in which over and over again he thanked the American veterans. He thanked America for liberating France. He talked about the hundreds of years of close unity and friendship between the 2 countries. And he showed such a generosity of spirit to all the different countries and all the allies. And his speech was really, I think, one that will go down as one of his greatest speeches, both in the wording and in the way he delivered it. And I think the gathering of those world leaders who had such deep divisions over Iraq, and who still do, by the way, I think today's gathering will certainly go a long way to at least helping them move forward in a more positive way.
Is it fair to assume that the passing of Ronald Reagan will additionally add to that momentum and help rebuild this alliance?
Well, I'm not sure. You know, certainly Ronald Reagan was remembered by President Bush, but just in a few eloquent words of tribute, the focus today was most definitely on these veterans, the people who were ordinary civilians who donned the uniform of America, of Britain, of many European nations, and came here and on one day changed the course of history. And that is what today was all about. But if you talk about the current situation, I think talking to the veterans, which we have done over the last several days, and in emotional conversations that really bring tears to your eyes, they lament the fact that today's struggle in Iraq is not of such a great and glorious alliance that theirs was. And they say that, you know, this war was so heavily thrust upon us. The World War II was a war of absolute urgent necessity. And they don't believe that Iraq was. They believe it was a war of choice.
CNN's Christiana Amanpour, thanks for your coverage. Helping a new generation appreciate the great sacrifices made on D-Day. My interview with the director, Steven Spielberg, that's coming up. He's here in Normandy taking part in today's ceremonies. Plus, Ronald Reagan's lasting legacy, how the former president reshaped world politics.
What would you rather have, a car or a cleaner environment?
I can't imagine being without my car. Of course, I'd rather have a clean environment, but I think that compromise is very hard to make where we are.
Honey, who is going to want to buy your lime green hatchback?
Oh, sweet mercy. A lime green hatchback. It's a thing of beauty.
No matter what car you're selling, Cars.com can help you sell it quickly and easily. From SUVs to minivans, even...
The lime green hatchback. Tell me you still have it.
Find the right car or buyer for you. Cars.com.
When a global financial firm understands your needs, like it's just the two of you, could it be the most powerful two-person financial firm in the world? You and us. UBS.
Dear Bill, it's nice to plan a trip just the way you like it. I enjoy making new friends. That's me on the left. I kept telling him, it's just a knock-knock joke, you big silly. Oh, my word, moving on swiftly. I kept looking. When she promised to write, I should have known. Yours very fondly, the roaming gnome. Book with Travelocity. Don't forget your hat.
It was a time of great hope, great concern, but it was a part of the feeling of the American people that whatever it costed, we would win. And whatever it cost, we would see to it that we carried forward the ideals of the country. We freed Europe, and we ended Nazism and totalitarianism. We beat both the Nazis and the militarists in Japan.
United States Congressman John Dingell, a veteran of World War II, speaking with me earlier today here in Normandy. The number of veterans who experienced the D-Day invasion is dwindling rapidly, but the 1998 movie Saving Private Ryan taught a new generation about the risks and the bloodshed it required. The director of that film, Steven Spielberg, attended today's 60th anniversary ceremonies. Earlier today, he told me he's been talking with some of the veterans here in Normandy.
They were thanking us for both the films, the Saving Private Ryan picture and also the Band of Brothers miniseries that Tom Hanks and I did together, because that was all involved. Just all it's pieces, the Rashomon pieces of the same story. But the great thing is they're just happy that you're remembering them, that there are so many people who have come here to honor what they did because they saved the world, didn't they? All the indicators pointed to a tremendous failure in the first hours of the landings. The tides were unanticipated, and the units were mixed and spread out, and Higgins boats either landed right next to each other or too far apart, allowing the Germans to concentrate their firepower. The entire beach was pre-sighted by Rommel. And everything that when they went into some of the bunkers, some of the Tobruk, when they finally got to the top, they saw charts showing how the beaches were pre-sighted, and it was a slaughter yard.
Steven Spielberg speaking with me earlier today. The actor Tom Hanks, by the way, the star of Saving Private Ryan, also attended today's ceremonies. A rocky relationship that resulted in a lasting friendship and redefined Russia. We'll go live to Moscow for Mikhail Gorbachev's reaction to the death of former President Ronald Reagan. Plus, a challenging presidency. How Reagan handled the most difficult moments in office. I'll speak with a member of his inner circle, his Attorney General, Dick Thornburgh.
Share, print, and manage ideas. Whenever inspiration hits you. How well do you share? Rico.
Are you nuts? What are you doing?
I just closed my home equity loan with Ditech.com. I don't need these anymore.
Want to pay off credit cards, consolidate debts, and lower your monthly payments? Apply now for a no-closing cost home equity loan from Ditech.com.
Oh, you like yours well done, huh?
Log on to Ditech.com or call 1-800-DITECH-1.
Our first new car together.
Hey, this XL7 is a Consumer's Digest Best Buy.
It's got a standard V6.
3 rows of seats, rear air conditioning. That's room for 7 of us.
What about all the cargo space? And it's got America's #1 warranty.
It's perfect. The Suzuki XL7, starting at $18,349. Whatever your plans, it's one smart move.
Welcome back. We're looking at pictures now from Santa Monica, California, as the nation mourns the loss of the man known as the Great Communicator. We have complete coverage of what's planned for Ronald Reagan's state funeral. That's coming up. Ronald Reagan's years in the White House, though, marked a dramatic shift in international relations. It was his unrelenting fight to stop the spread of communism that would become his greatest legacy to the world.
Your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand and repeat after me.
During President Reagan's second term, he guided America's victory in the Cold War. And he did it with a simple plan: remind Americans and everyone else about why he referred to the Soviet Union as the evil empire.
They are the focus of evil in the modern world.
One basic tenet formed the heart of Reagan's foreign policy: communism couldn't succeed. It was a theme he would hammer home often.
The Soviet Union faces a choice. It must make fundamental changes, or it will become obsolete.
Reagan believed the U.S. could not nurture stability with the Soviets by matching their arsenals. He believed military superiority was the key to peace. His presidency saw defense spending increase by 35%.
We rebuilt a demoralized, underfunded, and unappreciated military, and we made it the most modern and respected force in the world.
It was from that position of strength he issued a challenge to the Kremlin.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
The wall didn't come down on his watch, but the Cold War between the superpowers reached a pivotal moment. After a number of summits with Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev, the two signed the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. It was the first arms control agreement in history to eliminate nuclear missiles with a range between 300 and 3,000 miles in both countries. It laid the groundwork for future reductions.
Countries don't mistrust each other because they're armed. They're armed because they mistrust each other.
Reagan had little success in the Middle East. In April 1983, an attack by Shiite Muslims on the U.S. Embassy in Lebanon killed 63 people. Months later, another bombing in Lebanon, this time at a barracks for U.S. troops in Beirut. 241 U.S. Marines were killed.
Let no terrorist question our will, and no tyrant doubt our resolve. Americans have courage and determination, and we must not and will not be intimidated by anyone, anywhere.
He showed that resolve in Grenada. U.S. troops invaded the Caribbean island to quell a coup among its Marxist rulers. 18 American troops died. More than 100 were wounded. Critics complained Reagan was going too far to keep communism from expanding. But another powder keg was already igniting. Lebanese extremists, backed by Iran, seized Americans, killing some and holding others. It was the beginning of the most turbulent period of Reagan's presidency, Iran-Contra.
We did not, repeat, did not trade weapons or anything else for hostages, nor will we.
Committee to make this appearance. But congressional hearings revealed the U.S. had sold arms to Iran, hoping to influence the hostages' release. The money from the sale of those weapons was diverted to Nicaragua, to the Contra guerrillas, who were trying to overthrow the Sandinista government, a government with close ties to the Soviets. It was only a matter of time before Reagan had to acknowledge the truth.
There are reasons why it happened, but no excuses. It was a mistake.
His role had been minimal, and the man many called the Teflon president, with his wit and grace, weathered the storm.
Thank you.
Reagan, led by an unfailing belief in America, often referred to the nation as a shining city.
My friends, we did it. We weren't just marking time. We made a difference. We made the city stronger. We made the city freer. And we left it in good hands. All in all, not bad. Not bad at all. And so, goodbye. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America.
Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev's relationship was tumultuous, but in later years they actually became friends. Today, Gorbachev reacted to the news of Reagan's death and reflected on that friendship. Joining us now from Moscow, our bureau chief, Jill Doherty. Jill, I understand you had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Gorbachev today.
And the reason we wanted to, of course, because he has such a unique perspective. He said that he heard the news from his aide in the morning and they were quite upset. He said that his first thought was a person who has left a large footprint in history is gone. And he also said on a personal note that he felt that it was probably a relief. Death was a relief for President Reagan because after all, as Mr. Gorbachev put it, the past 10 years were a very difficult fate. He called President Reagan a great president and said that even though he was considered in Russia, as he put it, a right-wing hawk, he was still a person with forethought, intuition, and determination that together with Mr. Gorbachev, they could put an end to nuclear weapons. And he also, on a personal level, said that he was a wonderful conversationalist. He had great memories of that. He said that Reagan had a lot of charisma, but there were also some rocky moments.
We were not exactly in ecstasy with each other. We went off with our separate delegations, and I said, he's a real dinosaur. And he described me as a hard-headed communist or a Bolshevik.
So eventually they got over that and put their relationship back on track. Also, I asked him about the Cold War. Did Reagan, as some people would say, win the Cold War. And Mr. Gorbachev said that that essentially is as he put it, loaded with ideology. And although he did acknowledge the role of President Reagan, he said that essentially it happened because of the internal problems of the Soviet Union. In his no one won the Cold War. Wolf?
CNN's Jill Doherty in Moscow. Thanks, Jill, very much. At this hour, the nation's capital, that would be Washington, D.C., preparing for a funeral like it's not seen in over 30 years. Up next, a look at the amazing effort it takes to plan a state funeral in the United States. And later, a love story in pictures, rarely seen photographs of the former president and Nancy Reagan.
Do you push the snooze alarm in the morning? Do you feel like you need a nap in the daytime? Maybe the reason people are so tired in the morning is because they're tossing and turning on an old-fashioned mattress at night. You deserve a good night's sleep, and that's just what you'll get with a Tempur-Pedic Swedish Sleep System, the only mattress using the gravity-defying Tempur material originally developed by NASA and certified by the Space Foundation.
It's like you're sleeping on a cloud.
Before I had trouble sleeping through the night, and now I don't have any problems at all.
So call now, and we'll rush you this free information kit that includes a video explaining all about the features of the Tempur-Pedic Swedish Sleep System and a free sample of the amazing Tempur material. It will also tell you about the 20-year limited warranty and how you can try a Tempur-Pedic bed in your own bedroom free for an unheard of 4 full months.
So call now, 1-800-339-4884.
So, here's the one you saw on Cars.com. It's silver with alloy wheels and a bed liner.
Give me 5, man. Up high. Can you do crosstown?
I'm sorry?
Crosstown it.
What's that?
Crosstown it. That's what I'm talking about.
Crosstown.
Can you wiggle it?
Wiggle what?
Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. That's all right, we'll work on it.
Finding the car you want feels pretty good. Cars.com can help. Research, locate, even contact a dealer.
Can you bird it? Can you do the bird? Can you do the bird?
Find the right car for you. Cars.com.
Squash Saturday, you and me.
I don't play squash. You do now. Understand the past, dominate the future.
Punch to the ball. Punch to the ball. Keep the body still.
Good.
Go for the short swing.
Just watch his backhand. You get you some goggles. And it's on sale.
You, let's go.
Remember the kill shot.
Life's better with the Butterfly. Come see all the ways you can get more done at MSN.com.
Are you living with thick, discolored, or flaky nails? It may mean you're living with Digger, the dermatophyte. He and his friends got in deep under your nail. They may be causing an active live infection, and they're hoping you don't call this toll-free number to learn more about prescription Lamisil tablets. You'll get the information you need to start seeing clearer, healthier nails, including questions to ask your doctor, plus a check so you can save $10 on your prescription. Lamisil works through the bloodstream to attack the infection at its source. Lamisil isn't for people with liver or kidney problems. In rare cases, serious side effects in the liver or serious skin reactions have occurred, so your doctor may do a simple blood test. Other side effects, including headache, diarrhea, indigestion, and rash, were generally mild. Ask your doctor about Lamisil, the #1 prescribed brand for treating infected nails. The sooner you call for free information and $10 savings, the sooner you can start to see clearer, healthier nails. Lamisil tablets. Get your nail infection where it grows.
The United States will honor the memory of President Ronald Reagan this week in Washington. The president's remains will be flown there from California, then taken in procession to the Capitol Rotunda, where he'll lie in state. He'll also be remembered at a funeral service at the National Cathedral on Friday. CNN's Brian Todd has more.
A funeral fit for a president. The stage is set for Ronald Wilson Reagan's final visit to Washington.
At 7 o'clock, the state funeral ceremony will be held in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol.
Not every deceased American president gets the same treatment. only 9 have lain in state inside the Capitol Rotunda.
It takes a special set of circumstances, and frankly, the sense of a president who really did do more to change the course of the world than most others to reach the point where you lie in state.
The last to lie in state? Lyndon Baines Johnson, January 1973. There are no rules on who gets the honor. Acting on Richard Nixon's own wishes, his family decided against placing his body in state when he died in 1994. Historians say that saved the Nixon family and the country a great deal of discord, something we likely won't see this week.
I think what you see here with Reagan is something quite different from Nixon. The mood in the country. There's not much to forgive. I mean, yes, there is Iran-Contra, but this doesn't cast the long shadow of a Reagan that the Watergate cast over Richard Nixon.
The tradition of presidents lying in state goes back to Abraham Lincoln's funeral in 1865. The process, fairly simple. The deceased president's family, Congress, and the current president have to approve it. But from Lincoln to John F. Kennedy, it's the images we remember. From a little boy saluting his father to the thousands who pass the flag-draped casket to pay personal respects.
And it's as if the passing of royalty, the passing of an era, the passing of someone who is larger than life.
President Bush says a great American life has just come to an end. This week, we'll likely see a great American funeral in accordance with it. Brian Todd, CNN, Washington.
And joining us now is the presidential historian, Doug Brinkley. He's here in Normandy with us. Doug, when you give us some historic perspective, how big the deal will this state funeral in Washington be this week?
Well, it's very big. It's really a pageant. It's a little bit like a British king or queen being buried. Ronald Reagan's been very sick, really out of the public stage for a decade now. People have realized this is going to happen. He's 93 years old. And there's not a true shock value. Yes, people were caught by surprise yesterday. But remember when Franklin Roosevelt died, he was the sitting president, and his train went all the way from Warm Springs, Georgia to Washington, D.C. And at that point, there was only radio. You had Arthur Godfrey talking. With John F. Kennedy, you had not 24-hour cable news coverage. You had the local news and national news, but it was interrupted when Oswald, if you recall, the whole incident of his killing down in Dallas taking place right at the time of the pageant. Those two moments were jarring. People were scared when FDR died. They were scared when JF Kennedy died. This is a little more of a celebration of more than a mourning this week.
We haven't, as Brian Todd just reported, we haven't really seen this since LBJ.
Haven't seen it since LBJ, and different presidents for different reasons decide how to have their funeral. Richard Nixon wanted only a few people to be at Yorba Linda, and it was actually President Bill Clinton who had befriended Nixon, who convinced him to make it larger, and the most memorable scene out of that came with the 5 American presidents there, Ronald Reagan, George Bush, Gerald Ford, and Jimmy Carter and Bill Clinton, that group photo. What's your sense, looking ahead, how will this week affect the American political mood right now? That's a good question. I think that it's certainly going to help President Bush in the sense that people are returning to those values of Ronald Reagan, that notion of American nationalism, something that Bush is very strong about. I mean, one only has to take a look at Reagan chopping wood at the ranch in Santa Barbara and see a shot of President Bush at Crawford, Texas, to see that he stole some pages out of the great communicator. And I think that the key thing for Nancy Reagan, the Reagan family here, is to keep the legacy alive. After all, they were able successfully to have our national airport called Reagan Airport, to have a building in Washington named. There's a sustained effort by conservatives and the Reagan family to say that Ronald Reagan is not a mediocre president, not a near great president, but a great president, his face being deserved on Mount Rushmore. And a way to help that image is to have world leaders there. And you have the G8 this week coming, and to try to entice people like Gorbachev and then the current heads of state to perhaps come and be the state funeral. LBJ had a whole group of world leaders that came for his funeral.
Even in his death, his timing, obviously very, very perfect. Doug Brinkley, thanks very much.
Thank you both.
And up next, I'll speak with one of the men who served under President Ronald Reagan, Richard Thornburg, also. The private moments of such a public couple, rarely seen photographs of the Reagans. Also when we return.
Become a member, Starwood Preferred Guest, at Weston.com.
CNN Tonight, as the world mourns Ronald Reagan, friends share personal memories and the stories you haven't heard. Larry King Live, CNN Tonight, 90.
Parkinson's disease? We can help. We can help you with education, support groups, movement classes, referrals, and more. For more than 20 years, Parkinson's Resources of Oregon has been helping families live with the diagnosis of Parkinson's disease by encouraging optimism and hope, providing opportunities for self-help, education, and information. Parkinson's Resources is a Portland-based nonprofit organization serving Oregon and Southern Washington. Call to see how we can help you or someone you care about.
We have loads of puppies just looking for a home.
We've got a steak with your name on it.
Come on down to Bill's Kayak Shop for the adventure.
If you can afford radio advertising, you can afford cable TV. Comcast Spotlight can make it happen. And with Comcast Spotlight, you can target the customers you want to reach. So why settle for
Manja
when you can have?
Put your business on the fast track. Call Comcast Spotlight to find out more about advertising on cable.
Hi, I'm Joe Coruscant. We're here, we're new, we're Hillsborough Hyundai.
At Hillsborough Hyundai, you may never find a better price or financing like this again.
We have new cars starting at $79.95 with a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty.
Accents from $79.95, Elantras $96.95, Sonatas $11,995, Santa Fe's $14,995.
We'll finance your future, not your past. Look for the billboard with the big arrow at 30th and TV Highway. That's Hillsborough Hyundai.
I don't know. How fast does this one go?
Are you kidding? It's like a fish. A flounder.
Are flounders fast?
They're the cheetahs of the sea.
I thought they just laid on the bottom.
Well, it's like a tired cheetah.
Some things just don't compare. Like Comcast high-speed internet versus DSL. Comcast is up to 3 times faster.
Now available at CompUSA.
CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Ronald Reagan's presidency certainly had its troubled times. One person who helped the president through some of those big crises was his Attorney General, Dick Thornburgh. Mr. Thornburgh is joining us now live from Washington. Mr. Thornburgh, did you ever see Ronald Reagan get angry?
He was one of the most supremely serene people I think I've ever seen in public life. He let very little disturb him and bother him. He was always optimistic. He would not abide any naysaying and often would turn aside his critics and his political opponents with humor or with a kind word. He obviously had enormous challenges to face, but he was a leader, and he had the capacity to inspire those who worked with him to follow his lead in the overarching goals that he set for his administration.
So his sense, I take it that I've heard this from others, that he thought with a smile and a kind word, he could get a lot more than by screaming.
More often than not, he was right. The record shows that.
What was the biggest crisis that you helped him get through?
Well, I think the problems that we faced in the drug war during the 1980s, in which he and Mrs. Reagan took a special interest, prompted me as Attorney General to travel around the world to try to get an international coalition together to deal with the drug problem. We signed the first UN convention that brought together over 100 countries to deal with that problem, and I think set the stage for raising the profile of that issue in the international community, where it had been largely ignored up to then.
And what about Iran-Contra? Were you helpful to him during that crisis?
Only in giving moral support, because that was a matter handled not by the Department of Justice, as you may recall, but by that mischievous mechanism, the Independent Counsel. But we had to protect the government's interest during the Independent Counsel's investigation, and we tried to do so consistent with the responsibilities that we in the Independent Counsel had.
How would you rank Ronald Reagan as an American president?
Pretty near the top in many respects. He was a patriot, he was a leader,
He had this absolutely unquestionable optimism about America's future, which proved to be infectious, because I think most Americans, by the time he left office, felt a lot better about this country and its future than they did when he came into office. And you know, he left a special legacy as well, Wolf. His honest discussion of his Alzheimer's disease raised the profile of that dreadful affliction and was a great solace to those of us who are interested in finding a cure.
Dick Thornburg was the Attorney General under Ronald Reagan. Always good to speak with you, Dick Thornburg. Thanks for spending a few moments with us here today.
Thank you, Wolf. Always a pleasure.
And when we return, snapshots of a legendary love story, pictures of the Reagans you've probably never seen before. An official White House photographer opens up his private collection. And once again, our web question of the day is this: how significant was the Reagan presidency? You can vote right now. Go to CNN.com/Wolf. We'll have the results for you when we come back.
If a lunar rover can get out of a ditch on the moon, if a tugboat can tow an enormous freighter, if an M1 tank can have a heavy-duty Allison transmission, then why can't your truck? At GMC, our engineers don't just ask questions, they have answers. GMC Sierra line of pickups. Professional-grade engineering. It's not more than you need, just more than you're used to.
66,000 people in 50 countries. And every day, a two-person financial operation. You and us. UBS.
Do you push the snooze alarm in the morning? Do you feel like you need a nap in the daytime? Maybe the reason people are so tired in the morning is because they're tossing and turning on an old-fashioned mattress at night. You deserve a good night's sleep, and that's just what you'll get with a Tempur-Pedic Swedish Sleep System, the only mattress using the gravity-defying Tempur material originally developed by NASA and certified by the Space Foundation.
It's like you're sleeping on a cloud.
Before I had trouble sleeping through the night, and now I don't have any problems at all.
So call now and we'll rush you this free information kit that includes a video explaining all about the features of the Tempur-Pedic Swedish Sleep System and a free sample of the amazing Tempur material. It will also tell you about the 20-year limited warranty and how you can try a Tempur-Pedic bed in your own bedroom free for an unheard of 4 full months.
So call now, 1-800-339-4884.
Here's how you're weighing in on our web question of the day. Remember, we've been asking you this: how significant was the Reagan presidency? Look at this. 65% of you say it was very significant. 21% of you say somewhat significant. 13% of you say not at all. As always, we remind you this is not a scientific poll. Ronald and Nancy Reagan were married for 52 years. Pete Souza was an official White House photographer.